Stop for a moment and imagine what your life would be like if, starting today, every financial decision you made was guided with the surgical precision of someone who can predict every movement of money before it even happens. Now look back, with courage. How many times have you stumbled financially, not because of a lack of strength or hard work, but simply because you didn't know exactly where every penny of your money was? This is the truth that few have the courage to face, and that most prefer to ignore. It was at that exact point that I discovered the most closely guarded secret of my journey. The secret that separates ordinary men from empire builders, and it is this secret that today, in this intimate mentoring program, I finally reveal to you, because I realize that you are ready to hear what most would never be able to face, without feeling the crushing weight of responsibility. When I was just a young man with empty hands but a hungry mind, I earned my first few bucks helping to harvest potatoes. And there, under the unyielding guidance of my mother, a woman of iron discipline, I began what would become the invisible foundation of my empire. A notebook. Yes, a simple notebook. There, every coin received, every expense incurred, every debt taken on or avoided was recorded with almost sacred rigor. It was not a simple accounting exercise. It was daily training in governing the mind over money. You have been taught to believe that wealth comes from talent, hard work, or luck. Naive are those who think so. True power comes from a single skill, absolute and continuous control over every small financial and emotional movement in your life. That is why today I invite you to a transformative ritual. Just 7 days. 7 days where you will join me in this silent and unwavering habit that shaped my mind, built my empire, and sustained my fortune until I was 97 years old. Get ready, because from now on, you will no longer be just a worker. You will be a ruler. During these 7 days, you will wake up and before touching any task, any message, or any problem in the outside world, you will record with brutal honesty how much cash you have, what your financial commitments are, what your unavoidable expenses for the day will be, what financial decisions, even small ones, you will need to make. And at the end of the day, you will return to your record and write down how much you actually spent, what opportunities you missed out on due to fear or distraction, where you acted intelligently, where you were overcome by impulse. 7 days. That's all I ask. 7 days of absolute clarity about your financial reality and behavior. But I want you to understand, this is not a mere spreadsheet exercise. This is surgery on your own brain. Each note is a mental scalpel. Each entry is a confession between you and your conscience. When I first did this, I was just a young man with dreams disproportionate to my physical size. I wasn't the strongest nor the smartest, but I became the most disciplined. And in the game of money, discipline is worth more than genius. Now, allow me to ask you a question that few have the courage to answer. Do you know, at this very moment, with mathematical precision, how much money you have? Not more or less. I'm talking about an exact liquid real number. If your answer is not instantaneous, you are sailing in foggy seas. And those who sail in fog do not build empires. Best, they survive. That is why this habit that I have kept under lock and key for so long is actually an act of humility. It is the acceptance that money, like fire, needs to be contained and watched. Give it total freedom, and it will consume you. Surround it with discipline, and it will warm you for life. During these 7 days, something will begin to happen in your mind. You will notice the emergence of a natural instinct for capital conservation and multiplication. Small expenses that previously went unnoticed will take on the weight of strategic decisions. Impulsive purchases will seem childish. You will feel the pleasure of restraint, cold analysis, and long-term vision. This, my friend, is the beginning of your transformation from worker to empire builder. Now listen carefully. Most people who fail financially do not do so because of a lack of opportunities. They fail because they never develop the daily habit of vigilance. They live at the mercy of the economic winds, slaves to emotions, fads, and anxieties. The real empire begins where internal disorganization ends. My son, to whom I passed on, this same habit, heard from me a truth that I now repeat to you. If you don't control every dollar, the dollar will control you. You see, during the early years of building Standard Oil, I didn't make decisions based on projections or empty optimism. I made them based on real, accurate, daily records. I knew exactly what our capacity for expansion was. I knew what risk we could absorb. And more importantly, I knew where we shouldn't put a single penny. That's how I survived crises, wars, political attacks, and persecution. You can have any profession, any age, any social background, but without daily control of your finances, you will never escape the wheel of mediocrity. So, in this first 7-day cycle, I want you to start the ritual. Get a physical notebook, not an app, not a computer, a solid notebook where your hand can write each number, feeling the weight of each choice. At the end of those 7 days, you will no longer be the same. And when you feel your mind clearing, control setting in, and anxiety diminishing, I want you to comment below with conviction. Today I begin my change. This phrase will be your public declaration of commitment. Because writing activates your brain and seals the pact with your own mind. Now that you've started your 7-day cycle, there's something that needs to be said very clearly. This habit is not a passing fad. It is the deep root that sustains the greatest fortunes. And more than that, it transforms the very owner of the fortune. At the beginning of my journey, while other young people were chasing quick jobs or get-rich-quick schemes, I focused on something that seemed trivial in the eyes of the world, tracking every penny. And now I will reveal what lies behind this. When you write it down, you observe it. When you observe it, you understand it. When you understand it, you control it. The man who does not record his own financial movements is a stranger in his own kingdom. He does not know the land he walks on. He does not know the crops he has planted, nor the size of his barns. And a king who does not know the state of his kingdom is a king about to be deposed. But when you create this little daily ritual, opening your notebook, recording accurately, reviewing at the end of the day, something extraordinary begins to sprout within you. Expanded awareness. It is this awareness that protects the empire. It was this awareness that made me refuse unnecessary debts when everyone around me was going into debt. It was this awareness that made me keep a cash reserve, even when Standard Oil was already dominant. And it was this awareness, above all, that shielded me during the worst crises of the century. You see, the real secret of empires is not just knowing how to make money, but how to survive when the winds change. And let me tell you a cruel but liberating truth. The winds always change. Many of those who started out with me are gone. They were brilliant, bold, even aggressive. But they didn't have the daily habit of vigilance. When the storm came, and it always comes, they were unprepared. Now look around you. How many people do you know today who don't even know how much they spent last week? How many don't even have real control over their small daily expenses, and yet they dream of wealth? Poverty is not born of a lack of talent. It is born of the silent indiscipline that erodes the individual day after day. That's why this seemingly simple 7-day exercise already begins to separate you from the crowd. But there is something even deeper that I need to share. During this daily ritual, don't just write down numbers. Record your financial emotions as well. Yes, emotions. Write down when you feel afraid to spend, when you feel anxious looking at your balance, when an impulse purchase seems irresistible. Write down even when you feel elated over a small savings. Money is a mirror of the mind. The more you observe your emotional reactions to money, the more you begin to see what inner patterns are sabotaging you. This was a lesson that took me decades to fully understand. The biggest financial battle takes place within the individual, not in the market. That's why, in the early years, when I reviewed my notebook every night, I didn't just see numbers. I saw emotional patterns. Fear, the desire for social approval, the impulse to consume futilely. And over time, I tamed each one of them. Those who master their emotions around money become invincible. This emotional mastery, my friend, is not built with theories or superficial reading. It is built through the simple act of writing, reviewing, reflecting, and adjusting. Every day, 7 days will be your start. But I want you to understand, when you complete the cycle, you will feel a natural urge to continue. For the taste of order brings a sense of peace that financial chaos can never offer. This is the true path to solid prosperity. There are no tricks, no shortcuts, no lotteries. There is only discipline applied consistently. And I want to warn you now, while there is still time, there will be resistance. In the early days, your mind will look for excuses. Today was busy. I'll write it down tomorrow. Everything is under control. I remember it all. Be careful. These are the traps of the undisciplined mind. Say no to each and every one of them, because, believe me, the price of financial negligence is infinitely greater than the initial discomfort of discipline. When I completed my first 7 days, still young, I was no longer the same guy. Something inside me had changed irreversibly. I had become an observer of money, no longer a slave to it. And at that very moment, the path to empire had begun to open up. I know you feel the same calling. I know that within you there is already a seed of mastery that sets you apart from the crowd. And now, before we move forward, I want you to record, here publicly, with the strength of your decision, this is my time of blessings. Because those who recognize the blessing of discipline begin to live under a new decree of abundance. As we move forward, you will begin to notice something almost mystical taking shape. Financial clarity begins to expand beyond the numbers. First, it seemed like just an exercise in spending control, but slowly you will realize that you are beginning to see invisible patterns in your own life. Patterns that once imprisoned you in mediocrity are now beginning to dissolve. The average person spends according to their emotions, but the empire builder acts based on strategy. And strategy is born from clarity. During my journey, I realized that true capital is not just in the money we have, but in the mental energy we stop wasting on financial anxiety. When the mind knows exactly where you are, it becomes silent, it rests. And in this rest, the space for long-term vision is born. Now you begin to understand the true nature of this 7-day habit. It's not about money. It's about the mind. It's about discipline, self-control, and self-government. You see, every empire begins in the mind of its founder. No building rises before it exists in thought. No fortune is built before it exists in disciplined imagination. The daily record of your financial flow is, in fact, the blueprint for your first building. Each number you write down is a brick. Each nightly review is the cement. Each conscious adjustment is the foundation that will prevent your castle from collapsing when the inevitable earthquakes of life come. When I ruled Standard Oil, economic crises came like waves from a stormy sea. Banks collapsed. Companies went bankrupt. Fortunes evaporated. But my empire remained, because it was not built on quicksand, but on the rock of daily vigilance. I knew, with mathematical precision, how much we could withstand. I knew how much was invested, how much was risk, and how much was reserve. And above all, I knew how much would be enough. Here, I would like to share a principle that few have understood in my career. Knowing when to stop expanding is as valuable as knowing when to grow. Many are lost to greed. They grow without foundation, empty expansion, irresponsible debts. They are castles built on foundations of smoke. I have seen them collapse with ease. You will not be one of them. So during these 7 days, as you review, your evening notes start to reflect a second time. What is really essential? What can I eliminate? Where can I be even more efficient? Efficiency, my friend, is the invisible gold of lasting empires. But here comes the most important point of our mentoring session. Controlling money teaches you to control your ego. Notice how, by mastering your money on a daily basis, you also begin to master your emotions in negotiations, your reactions in discussions, and your choices in moments of tension. The habit of financial vigilance is, in fact, training in self-control. The man who controls his appetite for small purchases and momentary pleasures is the same man who, when faced with million-dollar negotiations, will know how to remain cool, calculating, and sovereign. Many assume that the greatest difficulty of an empire lies in big deals. No. The great challenge lies in the daily self-deception that erodes the foundation of small details. Therefore, at the end of your first 7 days, I will challenge you to take a step forward. A simple but transformative challenge. For another 7 days, start planning. Yes, planning. Write down not only what you already have and have already spent, but what you want to achieve. Set short, medium, and long-term numerical goals. Write down how much you want to accumulate, and how long. How quickly do you intend to reinvest your profits? When I did this as a young man, I set a goal that every dollar I earned would be reinvested to generate another dollar, not for consumption, but for expansion. And every penny was religiously redirected to growing the empire. Most people spend first and try to save what's left. Empire builders invest first and manage what's left. This simple reversal of financial logic creates an unbridgeable gap between the ordinary man and the extraordinary man. And once you realize the difference, you will never be able to return to your previous mindset. Now, I leave you with a new question to ponder tonight as you review your notebook. Am I living as a consumer or as an investor in my own life? The honest answer to that question will determine the size of your empire. At this point, you begin to touch a territory that few dare to explore, that of expanded vision. The simple 7-day habit has opened a door, but now I invite you to walk through that door and see the game board of life through the eyes of a strategist. Do you know why so many men fail, even when they accumulate money? Because they never understood that money alone is a blind tool. It needs to be commanded by a mind that sees decades ahead. John D. Rockefeller never desired mere wealth. I desired permanence. I wanted to create something that would withstand time, crises, and attacks. And to do that, I learned the true power of long-term strategic planning. Understand, what you are cultivating right now is not simply a growing bank account, but a rare mindset. A mind trained in strategic patience, daily vigilance, and absolute self-control over every financial, emotional, and behavioral decision. While many of my contemporaries sought to grow fast, I chose to grow solid. I didn't allow my company to expand faster than our ability to control it. I preferred to miss a profit opportunity today than to compromise tomorrow's stability. That strategic patience was the silent secret that kept me on top when many others fell. Now I'll teach you how to incorporate this into your own 7-day ritual. As you review your finances daily, start planning not just for the next few months, but for the next few years. Ask yourself, what do I want to build in the next 5 years? What needs to be solid to withstand the winds of the next crisis? Where do I need to be frugal now to be powerful later? This anticipation of the future is what separates the empire builder from the adventurer. You see, adventurers seek the next shiny opportunity, but those who build empires know that the greatest wealth isn't found in the latest market fad, but in the solid, disciplined, and methodical accumulation of capital and knowledge. While the world celebrates immediate profits, the truly wise remain steadfast, reinvesting, accumulating reserves, avoiding unnecessary debt. Many looked at me and didn't understand. Why, as the richest man in the world, did I still live simply? Why didn't I flaunt my fortune like so many others? Because I understood something that few will ever understand. Flaunting wealth is not a sign of power, it is a sign of weakness. It is the desperate cry of those who still need to be recognized because they cannot control their own ego. True power lies in discretion, in the ability to grow in silence, in the invisible strength that no one notices until it's too late for your competitors. Now, I want you to incorporate another powerful practice during the second 7-day cycle, the analysis of discretion. Every day, when you write down your finances, also record how many ostentatious decisions you resisted, how many temptations to consume uselessly were ignored. Where you were able to act with strategic humility. Every small gesture of discipline in this area will be like an underground foundation, invisible to the eyes of the world, but absolutely unbreakable in the big storms, because every time you resist the urge to show off your wealth, you protect it. Every penny saved quietly today will be a capital fortress in the future. It is not excessive movement that builds lasting fortunes. It is excessive solidity at the foundations. You see, my son, you have heard me repeat countless times, it is easy to get rich. The hard part is staying rich for decades. And to stay rich, you need 3 virtues: discipline, patience, and silence. Now look closely at the modern world. How many around you flaunt cars they don't own? How many travel with money they don't have? How many wear clothes they haven't paid for yet? How many show a happiness they can't sustain? They are like houses that are shiny on the outside and hollow on the inside. Like fruit that is beautiful on the outside but rotting on the inside. These people are not building empires. They are digging traps. The true builder, the one you are becoming, acts differently. You invest, you plant, you watch it grow in silence. You build invisible pillars, and when the empire finally emerges, it can no longer be torn down, because its roots are firmly planted in the solid ground of daily discipline. There is an indescribable pleasure that few will experience in life, the pleasure of lying down at night knowing that every penny is exactly where it should be, that every decision was made with clarity, that every risk was calculated, that every expense was controlled. That pleasure is priceless, because it brings peace. And peace, my friend, is the true luxury of empire builders. Now, before we move on to the next layer of our journey, I want you to declare your decision here in the comments, with the conviction of someone who understands. It's never too late to start over. This is your seal of belonging to this small brotherhood of solid, discreet, and unbeatable builders. So far, you have been training what I call external vision. Numbers, notes, daily records, strategic projections. This already puts you above 95% of people. But there is an even more powerful layer, and it is this that defines those who build legacies that span generations. It is what I call inner governance. Money, my friend, has never been the true enemy of man. The ego is. Anxiety is. Impulsiveness is. Vanity, haste, fear. These are the true saboteurs of lasting wealth. That's why in the 3rd cycle of our 7-day ritual, I want you to start recording not only numbers and goals, but also the state of your own spirit when dealing with money. When you wake up, ask yourself, how is my spirit today? Am I anxious? Am I at peace? Am I afraid of losing? Am I in a hurry to win? And at the end of the day, write down again. In which decisions did fear try to take control? Where did pride try to dominate me? Where did impulse try to drag me into unnecessary spending? Where did I overcome these forces and maintain control? I say this with the confidence of someone who has built a real empire. The greatest asset of a builder of solid wealth is control over their mind, self-control, in the face of euphoria and panic. During the worst moments of crisis, while others were falling apart around me, I remained calm, because I had already tamed my own demons long before the storm hit. This serenity does not come by chance. It comes from daily training, just as you are doing now. You are honing a mind that does not react to the market, but commands its own destiny. You are becoming what few men can be, an emotional fortress. Look at the world today. It is driven by collective hysteria. News creates artificial panic. Social media amplifies anxiety. With every crisis, crowds sell their assets out of fear, while a few, those with disciplined minds, take advantage to buy what has been abandoned. Throughout my life, I have understood that the true investor is not the one who tries to predict the next move of the market, but the one who governs himself while everyone else loses control. That is the essence of unshakable wealth. Now I challenge you, when you see that the world around you is in panic, stand firm. When others are euphoric, remain sober. When chaos reigns, take a deep breath and continue to follow your quiet plan for solid growth. This inner strength is the most precious asset you will ever develop. But there is a second fundamental element in this cycle that you must also incorporate into your daily records: strategic gratitude. Every day, When recording your finances, also write down 3 things you are grateful for in your life. No matter how small, gratitude, applied to money, creates 2 simultaneous forces. First, it heals anxiety. Second, it aligns your mind with an abundance mindset. The ungrateful man always believes he doesn't have enough, and for that reason, he acts with desperation, greed, and haste. His spirit remains empty, even if his bank account grows temporarily. The grateful man, on the other hand, celebrates what he has while patiently building what is to come. This was one of the invisible foundations of my empire. While others lost their peace, I remained grateful. Every small achievement was recognized. Every crisis overcome was celebrated internally. And so, money became a servant and never a master. If you'll allow me an intimate confession, many of my biggest deals were closed not because of my financial capacity, but because of the peace I conveyed during negotiations. Insecure and anxious men, when they sat down with me, sensed something they couldn't explain rationally. I was in no hurry. I didn't need that deal. I was already at peace. And that tranquility often brought the best conditions to me. Financial peace attracts opportunities. Now, at the end of this third 7-day cycle, I want you to understand the magnitude of the transformation already underway within you. You are not just writing down numbers. You are actually rewriting the very mental code that will lead you to the next years of solid construction. You are taming your inner self while organizing your outer self. Few men will do this in their lifetime. Most will live hostage to impulses, fads, disorder, and external and internal crises. You will not be one of them. Before we move on to the final layers of construction, I want you to write here in the comments, as a public seal of transformation, "This is my time of blessings." Because in fact, when the spirit is healed, wealth becomes inevitable. There is a dangerous illusion that has ruined thousands of ambitious men, the belief that when money starts flowing, the inner work can cease. Let me say this with absolute clarity. It is precisely when the first fruits begin to appear that the risk of internal collapse increases. Money is not the end of the journey. It is the beginning of an even more subtle battle, the battle against one's own comfort. When the bank account grows, the inattentive mind relaxes. The control that was once natural turns into negligence disguised as self-confidence. Daily notes are forgotten. Nightly reviews are postponed. Records dwindle. And slowly, the empire that seemed solid begins to rot from within. That's why, throughout my life, I have maintained the same ritual that I teach you today. No matter how much my fortune grew, my habits remained the same. I wrote things down, I reviewed, I planned, I reinvested. This daily ritual was the secret calendar that guided my decisions and protected my long-term vision. Now I want you to start building your own secret calendar. During the next 7-day cycle, add 3 new fields to your notebook, which will form the core of your growth machine. Reinvestment capital. Every day, when reviewing your balance and transactions, determine how much of your available capital will be reinvested. This simple discipline will accelerate your growth exponentially. Remember, empires don't grow because they earn a lot. They grow because they reinvest with discipline. Every dollar saved is a new worker at the service of your construction. Sources of multiplication. Write down opportunities that arise even if they are not yet ready for execution. Whether it's a promising business, a new skill that can be acquired, an expanding area, or a valuable connection. This will keep you in a constant state of strategic readiness, with an open mind for new avenues of solid expansion. But be careful. Write them down without anxiety, without rushing to act. Opportunities are like seeds. Some germinate immediately, others need time. Your role is to record them and observe them patiently. Emerging risks. Every vigilant empire constantly monitors its points of vulnerability. Make a daily note of where you see potential risks. These could be debts that are starting to grow, partners who are showing signs of instability, or areas of your business or financial life that need more attention. Constant vigilance is what prevents small problems from turning into fatal crises. While many focus only on gains, empire builders focus on protecting the foundations. Now you are beginning to operate as the true great builders of history have always done. And let me reveal a secret I have never shared publicly. True security does not come from the absolute value of your fortune, but from your ability to maintain the same behavior when money increases. If you practice daily vigilance with $1,000, you will be prepared to govern 1,000,000. If you neglect control with 100, you will never sustain 10,000. Thetikir. Man who does not govern small amounts is unprepared to govern large fortunes. When my assets began to reach tens of millions, I felt exactly the same weight of responsibility as I did when I had only a few thousand. Because I understood that a true empire is not measured by the volume of capital, but by the soundness of its financial governance structure. Now look around you. How many men, as they grew financially, gave themselves over to vanity? How many increased their consumption patterns as quickly as their income grew? How many abandoned small controls because they thought they were too big for details? These men are already financially dead. They still walk, they still smile, they still deceive, but collapse is only a matter of time. You, on the other hand, will follow the path of silent strength. With every dollar reinvested, your peace will increase. With every risk mapped out, your security will grow. With every opportunity recorded, your vision will expand. And with every new 7-day cycle, your mind will become even sharper, more patient, more strategic. This is the absolute secret to financial longevity. Now, before we close this section, I want you to publicly record, with the same spirit of commitment that brought you here. Today I begin my change. For the man who declares, before himself, the beginning of change, seals the pact with his own future greatness. You are crossing an invisible line. Few make it this far. Most get stuck in the previous phase where they merely accumulate money for their own consumption, still dominated by childish desires for ostentation and validation. But not you. Now we enter the most refined and subtle art, the art of planting an empire for future generations. And here I will tell you a truth that is brutal but necessary. Most empires are not destroyed by external forces. They are consumed from within, by unprepared children, spoiled grandchildren, and successors who inherited the money, but not the mind. That is why the true builder does not just prepare the estate. He trains conscious heirs. He creates successors who carry not just the safe, but the culture. During my life, I have often seen intelligent men create enormous fortunes, only to watch, while still alive, their own children squander what was achieved, through sweat and tears, and always for the same reason. These parents taught them how to earn, but they didn't teach them how to govern. That's why I'm talking to you today as a mentor, not just to make you rich, but to train you to be a wealth manager. A true empire is a continuous school. You have already learned, throughout these 7-day cycles, the value of daily note-taking, emotional analysis, ego control, prudent projection, and shielding against collapse. Now, I want you to understand that all of these principles need to be replicated in the minds of those who come after you, because you see, the greatest inheritance you can give is not your money, but your discipline, your spouse, your children, your partners, your apprentices. They are all watching your example every day, even if silently. They observe whether you delay immediate pleasure. They observe whether you consume less than you could. They observe your serenity in the face of profits and crises. They observe your frugality when everyone around you is flaunting their wealth. And one day, without you even realizing it, these principles will begin to take root in their minds. This is the first pillar of perpetuation, leadership by daily and consistent example. But there is a second pillar, which is even rarer, the formalization of the empire's philosophy. Here, I want you to start a new notebook. In it, over the next 7-day cycles, you will write, in your own words, the invisible laws that govern your wealth building. How do you view money? How do you deal with risk? What is your debt limit? How do you balance consumption? And reinvestment? What is your long-term vision? What psychological traps do you consciously avoid? How do you decide where and with whom to invest? This notebook will be more valuable to your heirs in the future than any amount of money you can leave them. Because while money can be lost and rebuilt, the wisdom of governance prevents collapse from even happening. Remember, money is a delayed reflection of the mind that governs it. Whoever masters the mind preserves the empire. Whoever loses the mind loses the money, sooner or later. During my years of greatest growth, I trained successors not only with capital, but with culture. That is why, even after my departure, my work was not dismantled by fragile heirs. It was continued by prepared managers who had already been trained to think as I did. I repeated to my children, almost like a mantra, accumulating wealth is easy. The hard part is preserving it with honor for 3 generations. That is why I prepared them from an early age with an awareness of the responsibility that wealth carries, not as a right, but as a duty. Now it's your turn to do the same. Inherited money without a built-in code of conduct destroys. It feeds the worst of the human soul: laziness, arrogance, empty hedonism. But money inherited along with principles of discipline, reinvestment, discretion, and service to others transforms descendants into true stewards of blessings. This is the highest calling of those who build with purpose. Now, I want you to also reflect on the 3rd pillar of perpetuation, strengthening the untouchable reserve. Every solid empire carries a core of capital that should never be used for consumption. This fund, which some call the heart of the empire, is untouchable. It generates security, stability, and perpetuation. That is why, even in the worst moments of economic history, I never had to dispose of strategic assets. My silent reserve was always ready, protected from impulses, prepared to protect my family, my work, and my name. Now is your time to start building that reserve. The initial amount doesn't matter. It can be small. What matters is the daily ritual of setting aside part of your profits, not to spend, but to perpetuate. With each 7-day cycle, it will grow. And with it, your peace of mind will also grow. Because a true empire builder sleeps peacefully, knowing that he will never be surprised by chaos. Now you are beginning to see clearly what I have always known. True wealth is spiritual security, not just accumulated numbers. This path, my friend, few know. It is reserved for those who renounce fleeting pleasures and choose to build something greater than themselves. You are ready. And so, before we close this section, I want you to declare publicly, with the spirit of one who has accepted your responsibility as the builder of a solid dynasty. Now it is my turn to build with wisdom. At this point, you are no longer the same man who began the first 7-day cycle. Your mind has been re-educated. Your discipline has been refined. Your vision has been broadened. But there is still one last key, the most subtle of all. The one that definitively separates empire builders from those who merely accumulate temporary possessions. That key is called the higher purpose of wealth. Let me speak to you now with all the clarity that my experience allows. Money, in and of itself, is a dangerous servant. It can work for you, or it can become your invisible executioner. Many men build fortunes only to feed their own egos, and the richer they become, the emptier they become. They try to fill that void with pleasures, vanities, superficial achievements, but the emptiness remains. Why? Because wealth without a mission becomes a burden. That is why, from an early age, I made a silent pact with myself. My fortune would exist to fulfill a greater role in society, in my family, and in my spirit. I did not build just for myself. I built to leave a legacy of transformation. And here is the true secret of eternal empires. They do not serve only their owner, they serve a cause. Throughout my journey, much of the resources I accumulated were allocated to something greater. Health, education, science, faith. These were not just donations. They were living extensions of my empire. They were seeds planted so that, even after my departure, my work would continue to nourish the world. Now I invite you to reflect. What will be your higher purpose? Is it to ensure the safety and education of future generations? Is it to support causes you believe in deeply? Is it to build institutions that will survive the test of time? Is it to create solid jobs that will support hundreds of families? Is it to become a mentor to others who are now walking the path you have already traveled? No matter what it is, the important thing is that it exists. Because an empire that does not serve a greater purpose is doomed to moral collapse, and sooner or later, financial collapse. But an empire that serves a purpose becomes unbeatable because it is fueled not only by the work of its builders, but by the invisible force of life itself. That is how I came to understand, at a young age, the true dimension of wealth. Money is a blessing from God. But like every blessing, it carries with it a responsibility that requires constant wisdom. This responsibility is not a burden. On the contrary, it gives meaning to daily effort. It is the fuel that sustains your discipline. It is the anchor that keeps you sober amid the euphoria. It is the beacon that guides you in moments of doubt. Now, as the last exercise in our 7-day ritual, I want you to add a definitive field to your notebook. Mission of perpetuation. Write down every day what purpose is guiding your financial decisions. Rewrite, adjust, deepen, refine. Over time, these words will crystallize in your mind until they become an inseparable part of who you are. And the stronger your mission, the more solid your empire will be. Because a man with purpose does not compromise his principles. He does not rush. He does not give in to vanity. He does not lose himself in abundance. He walks with quiet authority, knowing that every decision is aligned with something greater than himself. Now, at the end of this mentoring program, you are ready. You have a daily ritual of financial vigilance. You have mastered the emotions that destroy so many. You already think decades ahead. You are raising conscious heirs. You have established your silent reserve for perpetuation. And above all, you now have a clear purpose for your wealth. Very few make it this far, but you have. And that is why I end our journey with one last statement, which I want you to engrave in your mind every day until the end of your life. Solid wealth is not an accident. It is the daily reflection of those who first govern themselves. Now, my friend, it is your turn to act wisely. Sign up and share this video with those who seek the solid path to true wealth. For few will have access to these principles, but those who apply them will build something that neither time, nor crises, nor future generations can destroy. Now go forth, with authority, with vision, with responsibility, with peace. This was your calling. This was your mentoring.